Nintendo's not going to E3. Nintendo doesn't have much planned after Tears of the Kingdom. Zelda Lego sets. We got to talk about this, Matthew.
We do, because what is going on? It all sounds like bad news all the way around.
Yeah, sounds like this is going to be a pretty dumpy year. Anyway, welcome to We the People, your favorite weekly Nintendo podcast. I'm mostly joking, and my name is Michael Cottrell. Welcome to the show. I'm joined here by my twin brother, player 2 since the womb. Say hello, Matthew.
Hello, Matthew.
Well, you know, this is what you get. This is all you get with this.
I said what you told me to say, so.
Yeah, I mean, let's just jump right into it. I did not expect this morning, especially like after all the fake outs that we've got. I mean, just the sheer build up to this. And like, honestly, we always knew it was coming, but here it is. Tom Brady's retiring.
I was not expecting that. I mean, I love Tom Brady and I love the Patriots, but yeah, Tom Brady is probably, once he heard that no Donkey Kong was coming out this year anymore, he said, I have no reason to play football anymore. I don't see how those two things correlate, but well,
he was going to play one more year so that he had enough money to afford buying the Donkey Kong game for 50,000 of his most loyal fans. But now here we are. Vast shame. Anyway, to jump into the real stuff, IGN, I don't know if you guys have heard of them. I know them as an acronym for in-game name. Every time I go to their website, my eyes explode from all the ads.
Is that really what IGN?
Me.
Is that really what IGN stands for?
No, but I mean, like what you would say in the MMOs. I was an MMO child playing the World of Warcraft, the Ragnarok Online, the Maple Story. I'm just kidding. I didn't play Maple Story. Who do you think I am? You think I'm a loser? You think I'm a loser?
You think I'm a nerd?
I'm just kidding. Maple Story looked cool, but I just, wasn't meant to be. I had a really bad computer. But yeah, that was what I knew it as. IGN, I don't know, stands for
Internet Gaming News. Probably.
Yeah, I was going somewhere else, but we'll take that.
What did you say?
My first word was ignoramus, but it's just like an abbreviation. It's the first three letters of it. It's just like a shortened thing. But yeah, so our boys there, who obviously some of the guys have like been there long enough to have those sort of scoops. They have those sort of relationships. What they choose to take into a news article and what they don't is interesting, and of course at the discretion of like if they want to burn bridges with publishers or whatnot. But this news only hurts the company that just is on its last leg anyway. I'm surprised it's still kicking. We were talking about the what is it, the ESA, it's the
company that runs E3.
Yeah. I'm just like I'm reading this news report today, and like I've always been aware of like their it is ESA. I just think they've been gone so long, and I don't even factor them in. This was a organization originally formed as a lobbying arm of the game industry. They self-policed with having the ESRB rating system, and they still run that to this day. And, basically the deal was all the big publishers and manufacturers would pay into the system, and ESRB would create laws that help them do their business. It doesn't always go well. I mean, if they had their way entirely, then renting games would be illegal, like Nintendo tried to pull in the 90s. But yeah, so that is why that board exists. E3 grew out of that as a trade show and accounted for a lot of the revenue that they brought in every year. So of course that was very important to them. Nintendo started doing the directs. Everybody else followed suit, and here we are where it's like there's just not much of a need for this anymore. They tried pivoting the event to like more of a fan focused thing, and that was a disaster because yeah, I mean, really, like, what this always was growing up was, like, the Super Bowl of game announcements. And I know that part of me dies inside that, like, I look forward to watching advertisements, but here I am. I've got no shame when it comes to E3. And And yeah, I mean, as you might remember, it was absent during the what was that thing that happened in 2020?
COVID.
No, the other thing.
Uh, I don't know. What is the other thing?
I'm sure I'll think of it eventually. But yeah, because of all that, they canceled. And you gotta imagine Nintendo is looking at this, Microsoft, PlayStation, and they're going to other events. They're holding some of their own things, and they're looking at their marketing budget, how it's fatter than usual. Usually they would, blow a bunch of money on physical space when they're like, come on, everybody just watches them, the trailers on YouTube, people live stream the events. E3 is just not necessary anymore. So what I will say before I give the ball to you, Matthew, is that this is rumored, and the ESA has come out to say, oh man, IGN, stop. They haven't confirmed that PlayStation, Microsoft, or Nintendo are in attendance. They haven't confirmed any publishers. They don't really have anything backing that up. They're just like, we love doing E3 and it is great, and we'll see if Nintendo comes. So I don't know. What do you think about this, Matthew?
I mean, I'll tell you, I would be very disappointed if this news is true that Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft are all planning on not doing anything that coincides with E3, let alone showing up to the event at all. Because I've always thought that E3 is just a very important time for video games. I think it's when all, the game community's eyeballs are focused on one event. And I think it breeds a lot of cross-platform, what am I trying to say? Just interest. Let's say if you're normally a person, you only play PlayStation, well, it gives you a good opportunity to see some stuff that's going on with Nintendo or Microsoft, and who knows, that might create some interest there, and now you're looking at different systems. And so I always thought it served a really good purpose as far as, this is going to be the time in which people are paying attention to what's going on in the world of gaming. And so it's always felt like Christmas Day to me. Like I just always remember, especially way back in the day when, around the time when I think the year Super Smash Bros. Brawl was announced, when it used to be on G4, you remember that channel? It just used to be this fun thing where coverage was going on all week, and you were getting these really cool previews of games, and you got to see people trying out the games. If you were there live, you got to play them yourself. I always thought E3 was just a really cool event. So with all that being said, I would be severely disappointed if this news is true, because I don't really see how it benefits anybody. I understand that everybody can just do their, regular announcements now, but I feel like those announcements don't carry the same weight. They don't have the same level of excitement as used to get going into E3. And that's where I'll say with Nintendo, even though Nintendo hasn't done a show at E3 in a long time now, in 10 years or so? Not since, I don't know, 2013, 2014. It's been a long time, but they have always had a Nintendo Direct to coincide with the event. And so I've always felt like whether or not you show up, just having something that exists within that time frame was always a good idea for me personally. But I just really want to know where IGN is getting this information, because it seems like they've had a lot to say in general lately. And, I would think if a company like IGN probably has more, relationships with people within the game community and inside sources, things of that nature. But it just seems odd to publish this story because they're not normally in the business of spreading rumors, and I could easily see this not being true. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, like you said, that people don't really have to hold E3 events anymore, but I don't know. It just seems a little odd is all. So I'm not really sure what to expect as far as this goes, or what's going to happen within that time frame. Does that mean we're still going to get a Nintendo Direct that happens around that time, or a what do they call the PlayStation ones now? The State of Play. I don't know.
Who knows? I don't know how PlayStation takes incredible announcements like a Wolverine game and a Spider-Man sequel and just makes them feel so boring. They've got no sauce, which isn't to say Nintendo Direct has any sauce left. I think once Iwata was out, it's sauceless.
Oh yeah, especially when, they show all those indie games and, that narrator who's terrible. It's always, be on the lookout for this new JRPG. You know, like I don't know who that is, but whenever he's on, you know, something really unexciting is about to be shown. Is unexciting a word? I don't know. Something that lacks excitement.
So lacking sauce, I think is what you mean. That's the vernacular, which Xbox did their first Xbox Direct, which, like, you know, and they all have their own names for things, but like, just, okay. Yeah. They called it developer Direct is what Xbox called it. PlayStation's trying to like brand it themselves. Shut up, guys. It's a Nintendo Direct. Just call it Nintendo Direct, but PlayStation. And yeah, Microsoft did that. They showed off, you know, Minecraft, Forza, Hi-Fi Rush looks cool. Looks like a Jet Set Radio kind of vibe. But yeah, no, none of that. What Skyrim sequel, the Elder Scrolls 7 or whatever. It doesn't matter. That game is just an idea, and so it's it until it actually gets, you know, until we actually see a moment of it. But yeah, not a whole lot of. Not a whole lot happening there either. And I think, like, you know, if Xbox has just had this right now, like what more are they going to have? I mean, they could be planning some kind of big reveal of their big Bethesda games. You know, the point of that whole acquisition later on. PlayStation's got plenty of stuff to show at an E3 time slot, but it's like, again, you know, they can rent their own space and, you know, just live stream things themselves.
What do you think the reason being, assuming the rumors are true, because it sounds like from the article IGN published, it sounds like Phil Spencer, I can't remember exactly what he said, but it sounds like he's basically confirming that they won't have a presence at E3 themselves this year. But why do we think Nintendo or PlayStation went? Now, PlayStation, I understand, because they haven't been involved with E3 even before E3 went away for a couple of years because of the pandemic. But I just wonder why Nintendo wouldn't, because here's my thing with it, is that I feel like if I was Nintendo, I'd be looking at this as an opportunity. You know, if Sony's going to pull out and Microsoft's going to pull out, that just gives me like all the spotlight when it comes to E3. Now, I understand there's developers, you know, like Activision, Ubisoft, they'll probably have some level of presence at E3. But I just think as far as the only publisher that has the notoriety, like the you know, the big three, so to speak, you know, like it's going to give you a lot more positive attention and people focusing on what you have coming. And so I don't know, it feels like it makes a lot of sense for Nintendo to be involved with E3 this year in some capacity.
Yeah, I mean, what I think happened is that these companies had a certain amount of marketing budget set aside to do E3 activities. You know, you got to think for Nintendo, you're flying a bunch of people from Japan to California. You're getting the treehouse out from Redmond, Washington over to California, which, you know, isn't a huge flight, but it's, you know, it's a ton of money to like bring that many people in, all the production units. Breath of the Wild got stolen one time. The E3 build of the game. Like, there's all these troubles that come with it. And when the pandemic happened, everybody had the opportunity to just do their own thing and watch their money pile up. I mean, it was record years in video games. Then E3 comes back and is like, hey, you want to go back to like doing it the old way? No, they're an unnecessary middleman business, and their usefulness is fading. I mean, honestly, even from like the lobbying front, like these companies are probably big enough now. I mean, it's like Microsoft is going to do a lot of your lobbying for you because, you know, as gigantic businesses, you all have the same interest in, you know, being able to track people's information and extracting as much money as possible, forcing people to have their consoles online while they play games to make sure that you bought that. Like, you know, Microsoft is going to push that lane for them. They, you know, and Microsoft is way more powerful than, you know, any sort of like joint gaming organization, any lobbying arm. So if you're not helping me on the lobbying front and you're not helping me on the marketing front, yeah, you just don't need to exist. And so the way I think it probably went down is that someone pulled out and then the other two did. Because, like, you know, it's another thing big companies do. They just kind of follow each other's lead.
Which makes no sense because like you're competitors at the end of the day. It's like if you want to sacrifice a platform that gives you the attention of a lot of people in the gaming community at once, it's kind of like the highlight moment of gaming every year as far as news goes. And so it's like if you're going to sacrifice utilizing that, then that just gives me more to work with, you know? So that's why I just find it so strange.
Yeah, I just also think that like it's just going to happen like it has been for the last few years. And I think isn't Jeff Keighley running something? He does his summer thing because he wants to take over E3. He wants to like create a new E3, which I don't know. I'm going to come out and say it. Jeff Keighley's cringe. The Game Awards are cringe. You know, they're just giant advertisements. And, you know, there's what AAA game was AAA? This one had the graphics.
Oh, which publisher paid us the most money to advertise their game? Come on up, Vin Diesel. Advertise your PlayStation 2 Fast and Furious game. You know, like, I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little suspect that, like, Breath of the Wild wins Game of the Year, and then, like, they do a DLC trailer as part of the Game Awards. Come on. Like, how do you not see, like... But again, you know, this is the game industry where, you know, we watch advertisements like we watch TV shows. So, you know, fair enough, I guess. But my point in saying that is that there's that option coming up if people want to do it. But Nintendo doesn't even really play ball much with Keighley either. Because the Game Awards are probably not as like big as they would like them to be. And again, it's like if all these companies just post their sort of direct at, you know, whatever time in the summer, is it really any different? I would say no. I mean, I think that the interesting thing, it was always fun from like a viewer perspective to like have this marathon of stuff to kind of pay attention to. But, you know, imagine you're like, you know, let's say you're Nintendo and you announce like a new IP, and then it's cool, it's getting some buzz, and then like Microsoft the next day announces the next Elder Scrolls game, and you know it's everything that people wanted it to be, and it's like just like Skyrim but better in every way. Your game's getting buried for like no reason other than like, you know, just timing. And so I think they're going to try and find like less competitive slots to do their announcements in. And, you know, especially from Nintendo's perspective, if you got your big tentpole game for the year launching in May, you probably got some Pokemon DLC or a repackaged third version of the game coming this year, you know, because Pokemon's got to squeeze that money. You've got Pikmin also happening in the year. Like, I mean, you know, there's not really any other like magic tricks up the sleeve unless you've got some kind of big Donkey Kong game for the fall.
See, the funny thing, though, is that you saying the wanting to not deal with as competitive time slots, but here's the funny thing about that. Like, a lot of times, if you look at how television operates, for example, a lot of times when a television network wants to premiere a new TV show or what am I trying to say? Like if they're trying to bring back a television show, for example, usually a lot of times they want to air that after a big event. Like for example, when the X-Files came back on TV, when they rebooted it for seasons 10 and 11, the premiere episode came after the NFC championship game in the NFL, which was one of the conference's title games that would decide one of the teams that would be in the Super Bowl. And that premiere ended up doing incredibly well because of that. That's why a lot of times too, people like to air episodes of shows that follow the Super Bowl, because naturally you get more people watching it because the Super Bowl is the most watched television event in the United States every year. So it's just one of those things like, yeah, you might have an announcement of, oh, Elder Scrolls, this is exactly what we've been wanting for years. And then because of that, because all these people were watching this event, all these extra people, because they were waiting to see an announcement like this, chances are what happens in a lot of these cases is people stay tuned in. They leave the TV on or the computer on in this case. And so let's say Nintendo's event follows that and then they have some trailers. Now you've got more people watching that. And so that's why I'm saying, like, I don't know. I think a lot of times it makes sense to air stuff all close together because of that. You get some of that cross-pollination. So I don't know, man. I don't know if I... What?
Pollination.
Pollination. Yeah,
adding some sauce. It's too much sauce, Matthew.
Yeah, it's too much sauce, man, and it's been a long day. So, But
no,
yeah,
but,
I mean,
here's what I would say about that. Like, that would be true if there were some sort of centralized channel that was doing this. And that's where, like, Jeff Keighley's got a chance. He's got a chance at pulling this off. If E3 was, like, airing on ABC or NBC or something like that, sure. But it's not. It's just going to be live streamed on Twitch or whatever. And, like, you know, at that point, you know, especially if it doesn't have the big three in attendance, they're not going to be able to do anything with it. And that's where I think, like, you know, I would agree with you if you know, if TV was still as big a deal as it used to be. I mean, that used to be our method of watching it way back in the day. We didn't have the opportunity to, like, live stream it. Stuff like Twitch was, like, Justin TV at that point. Nobody watched it. And, or, you know, like, big companies weren't, you know, having their own presence there. And so, yeah, I mean, like, we watched it in places like G4 TV, and that's why G4 survived and then it died, because with the advent of, you know, YouTube, Twitch, yada, yada, there's just not a need for, like, that middleman anymore.
Yeah. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's why definitely E3 worked way better as a television event than it works as a streamed live event on the internet. What I'm starting to wonder is if maybe, let's just say, based on this rumor that this all is true, I'm wondering if the big three is pulling out because they're going to go with the Summer Game Awards, which is what Jeff Keighley hosts. And that's kind of, because I just can't imagine none of these guys having any sort of presence over the summer whatsoever. Like, it just sounds so weird. I'm not saying that traditions can't be broken, but it seems like, hey, man, there's a reason this has been done this way for so long. And while the process has changed, you know, here and there, I just think the idea of advertising your games over the summer, especially because that's when you're going to get the most people to watch it. That's when people are on vacation, like adults are taking time off of work, you know, kids are out of school. It just makes the most sense to advertise a lot of your stuff, like what you've got coming for the next year or so over the summer. So I don't know. I'll be honest, though, I'd be really upset if they left E3 in favor of Jeff Keighley's show. I'd almost rather them not do anything at all because, like you said, I think Jeff Keighley is I don't like saying the word cringe. That's like one of those, it's become a gamer term. Every gamer says, like, cringe. Like, I don't know. He's just a loser to me. Like, I don't know how to put that any other way. I just think it's so funny that even one of my favorite franchises, Crash Bandicoot, you know, he's always so enamored with Crash now and always has Crash Bandicoot and has some level of presence at the Game Awards and wants to advertise this and that just because, you know, that's, you know, Activision's paying him the money to do that. And I get that's how business works. I'm not going to be naive and, you know, but it's just annoying just watching him. Like, he just goes wherever the money is. That's why you see stuff like Fast and Furious that looks like a GameCube game being advertised as like a show point of the Game Awards. And it's like, what are we doing here, man?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, it's like maybe I should make some video, like, just going through my entire thoughts. I almost did at one point, but it's just, it's almost too much to chronicle. So, I mean, if it was just like, here's the Jeff Keighley game ads, or like, you know, if you kind of slanted it as anything else than the Game Awards, I'd probably be fine with it. But I remember watching it the last time I did, maybe like 2 years ago, and you know, they would rattle off like 6 awards in a row, and then the winner for this is this, and the winner for this and this. Check out this Doritos commercial now. You know, it's like they're not even there to, like, really honor the game developers, because the only awards that they give any stage time to are the awards that, you know, the same like 3 companies gobble up every year. And it's just like, I don't know, but yeah, I mean, it's like, what it really is it's an opportunity for game companies to continue marketing in a December slot that wasn't there before. It gets pretty good viewership. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of become a thing. I was looking at a list of like things revealed at the last Game Awards, and, you know, we had Death Stranding 2, a couple of big indie games like Hades 2, and the next game from the creators of Celeste. We had like the Mario movie there, and Tekken and Street Fighter, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I mean, you know, Rumble. So it's like, and that's why it exists. It exists to, you know, but that's also why, like, I think the Game Awards is like, I don't know. I think its days are as numbered as E3 always was, because, what is the purpose of like putting your announcements along with, everything else sandwich, it's just the Game Awards themselves are often like tied into ads, and then there's ads in between, and then the world premiere is always like just another ad. It's a lot. Which, granted, I mean, that's what E3 was too, but that's kind of my point, is like, I think eventually we're just going to figure out a better way to deliver this sort of information. And I think, from the standpoint of these marketing teams that are on there, I can tell you from experience, I work in marketing, and whenever a new platform or a new thing comes up, you don't want to be the one company that's like missing out. And so even if you don't think you're going to get much play on it, there's like this curiosity, like, oh, should we start a Twitch channel? Or like, oh, should we, get in on like Truth's, what's the, Be Real? Be Real is the Truth Social. No, Be Real, the new like kind of Instagram replacement. There's always going to be that thought, as the gold rush happened with like NFTs and all that stuff. No marketing team wants to be like the only one who's missing out on those sweet, juicy impressions. At the same time, like, I think people are eventually going to figure out like that they're probably paying way more than they need to air their trailer around the Game Awards.
Yeah, and I'm not going to vilify them for having a bunch of advertisements. I mean, that's what pays the bills, So, but it is just funny to me that they prioritize the advertisements and the trailers, but then they'll have like, best family game award of the year, and it's just some quick little side bit that they do. It's just Jeff Keighley, here's the nominees, and then this is the award, and it's just like that well, okay, like the priority of this should be the awards themselves, not you trying to make money by allowing people to advertise their games here and run a million advertisements. It's just kind of like that should be, a focus of the show, but it shouldn't be the main focus of, the Game Awards.
Yeah, the awards are like the last thing that they want to do. So I just think it was a stupid thing. But like, why do the Game Awards then? Why not call it like Jeff Keighley's December Gamer Bash? Because the whole like Game of the Year thing has always been a popular thing. Every YouTuber and media outlet does their like best games of the year thing. It's a very popular type of content, and people want to, vent their own opinions. And so it's a clever marketing campaign on his part, where like people vote for each award. And so they've got to have like 6,000 different categories so that, we're not actually going to give Fire Emblem any awards, but like, here's one with Fire Emblem in it. So we can get the Fire Emblem fan base to like, go and advertise this stupid show for us. And then, it's just like in the, like, imagine being that team of developers that worked for like 5 years on something, and you won an award for Fire Emblem, and he just rattles it off with like 6 other awards. Like, all right, back to the real stuff. Check out this Facebook commercial. It's, and I get it. Like, everything has to have like profit and, money made into it. But, I would argue that Jeff Keighley could save a lot of money by not bringing like weird famous people from like the mid 2000s. It's just some weird energy where it's like, we got Green Day, we got like all the people that like I thought were cool when I had cool hair and got to be glued in my hair. There's so much of that weird like mid 2000s energy that you're spending like an arm and a leg to get these celebrities who are like Stephen A. Smith. Hey, what's up, all you nerds? I hate video games and I hate all of you, but I'm gonna give this award because I got paid $1 million to show up here. It's just, you don't have to blow all that money on people who hate video games to show up just so you can say, Snoop Dogg was there.
You remember when they had Joel McHale with Reggie and they were showing off
example.
Donkey Kong
Yeah.
Country, Tropical Freeze, and he's just like making stupid jokes that, are basically just making fun of people who play video games, or it's stuff that just had nothing to do with the actual game.
Yeah, it's like the casting description for that one way back in the day was like, we need someone like who hates video games, who thinks Jeff Keighley is a dork, and like, we just want you to like let the audience know that they're stupid for caring about this. It's like that Velma animated show where they have a joke where they like have a joke at the expense of adults who watch cartoons, which is kind of ironic when you're making a show about cartoons for adults.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's yeah, but that's what like I think the biggest problem we have with it is that it's an award show that or it claims to be an award show when it's really just a platform to run a million ads that parades around like like an award show when really like its focus is to show game trailers and to run advertisements and
Yeah, I mean,
you know, they
E3
call
in
it an
December.
awards show just to get people to watch it, you know, because people are like, oh, I'm interested in seeing what was the game of the year or what had the best soundtrack or, you know, and I think it's lame in that sense. But, you know, I kind of expect that from a guy like Jeff Keighley. I mean, he seems like the type of person to, you know, again, it's the revenue is the bottom line. And I understand we're all adults. Our goal is to make money and as much of it as possible in life. But it just, I don't know. He always just seems like a conniving person to me, but
I mean, that's how you get to those positions of like influence is like, you know, you schmooze with a lot of people. And, you know, it's ironic because like if you got like Scott the Woz and Moist Critical and, you know, whoever, like those sort of guys, you could pay them like 1/10 of the money that you're paying Nickelback to show up. And it's going to have like 10 times the impact. It's just kind of dumb. Like he's trying to make like games like kind of mainstream, like the Oscars or whatever. And it's like, I appreciate that sentiment, but it's just done in this way where it's like the validating part of games isn't that like, you know, Martha Stewart's going to come out and say like, oh, look at you guys playing your video games. Thanks for having me. It's going to be
like Steph Curry showing up and.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's just like, it's just a growing cultural thing. The Last of Us is an horrendously popular HBO launch. You know, Henry Cavill has been, you know, is a big dweeb and just like doesn't need to hide it. You know, he's building a PC. He loves those nerdy games and like people just do now. I think even in the Batman press tour, in the Batman press circuit, there was the guy. God, what was his name? Pattinson, Robert you know what I'm talking about. Edward. He was saying that that Final Fantasy VII made him cry, and he, you know, it was like just came up in the interview. Like it's just gaming is becoming part of culture, and so there's not any need for this. Like, look, mom, and this is the energy that I get from it. Like every time, it's like, look, mom, video games are serious. You see how these guys say "damn." And you know, like you see how these guys like they like it's a story about fatherhood, you know. That's been like the big AAA thing. It's like, you know, someone had a kid. There's a lot of story potential here.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like Jeff Keighley has the idea that I don't know if you ever saw this interview, but there was an NFL player who plays for the Detroit Lions. I forget his name, but he's a really good running back, and he either broke a record that Barry Sanders held, who's, you know, one of the best running backs of all time. But anyway, after the regular season finale, you know, he was getting tired of the reporters asking him questions and he was being funny about it. But he's like, I just want to finish so I can go home and play Pokemon. And then some guy says, you're going to go play Pokemon? And he said, it's Pokemon, bro. He's like, don't disrespect Pokemon. And then he's like, oh, no, I used to have those cards. And he's like, well, those cards must have sucked because he's like, how you disrespect Pokemon? But, you know, I get the vibe from Jeff Keighley, how he views or how he thinks most people view video games as that guy who told the NFL player, oh, Pokemon. It's like, oh, I have to be cool and pretend like I don't know what this is. When we don't live in that world anymore. You know, you and I dealt with stuff like that in junior high or maybe high school where people had to be like, no, I don't know Pikachu or Charizard or, you know, nobody does that anymore. Now you have people who are 35 and they're proud to admit that they, you know, are really good at hatching shinies and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet.
Literally, you know, every adult.
There's no shame in it anymore.
Literally, like, you know, 90% of adults I meet play some sort of video game. Like, it's just become a part of our culture. And that's why, like, I just, you know, it's what I see in the games kind of like imitating Hollywood too, where like, you know, dude, God of War is like one continuous shot, which would be really impressive if it was film, but it's not. And so like, it doesn't matter, dude. Like, it doesn't matter at all. Like, that's cool. That's nifty. I hope it makes the game better in some way, but like this need to like become Hollywood for games is just so lame, because games do things that are just on a different plane of existence than what like a movie is. And it's funny because like The Last of Us translates perfectly into a TV show. They're not reinventing the wheel. They're not really adding a whole lot to the story. At least in the 2 episodes that I've saw, it's like, you know, almost like frame by frame recreations of it. And the stuff they do add is just kind of like weird, you know, the zombie kissing thing. You can look that up on your own time. You know, like besides that stuff, it's really just not that groundbreaking, because that game was made to be a TV show. Like it plays like a TV show. Like, I mean, it's fine, but it's like nothing revolutionary in the gameplay front. And it's like, you know, you compare that to some other games like That Dragon Cancer, and the way that it approaches storytelling is like that story is best told in a video game. You could make a movie, but it just would not hit anywhere near the same way that the video game does. And that's what I want to see more of. And just like, you know, games are allowed to be just like pure fun, you know, in a different way where it's just like mechanically fun. You know, I hate the characters of Fire Emblem. I hate the story of Fire Emblem. I am really like not enjoying my time with Engage in like 9 out of 10 ways. But you know what hits hard? It's that gameplay. You know, I move my guys around on the map and I strategize of who I'm going to take down and who's getting their level up, and like I'm customizing my team, and you know, it's got that, and a movie can never do that. So like games should keep focusing on that instead of, you know, oh man, it's just like the cinematography of this video game is, man, it's like, that's cool, but it's ultimately secondary to what it is, because you know what like kind of undergirds this cool cinematic presence is how unrealistic and silly it is for Nathan Drake to mow down 5,000 people and be like a good guy at the end of the day. It's like, you know, it's just, you know, at some point I feel like you got to pick a lane. But wow, we've gone on quite the tangent here. Let's back up for a minute here for what this means for Nintendo. Now, this just in hot off the press, it's rumored that a Nintendo Direct is going to drop sometime very soon. Papa Genos is saying probably the same day that Nintendo's next investor meeting is happening, and that is going to be on the 7th. Is that going to happen? Do we buy that?
Well, I don't know if we should talk about this first or get into, because wasn't there another IGN rumor about, because we didn't even get into the whole, they're also corroborating the story about there being no news after, or sorry, no major Switch titles after The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So I don't know if we should, since we're kind of on the whole subject of IGN and Jeff Keighley. And
yeah, IGN is backing up that story that after Tears of the Kingdom, there's really not much going on with Nintendo for the rest of the year. Now, there's a couple different ways to read this that nobody's being like in super clear on. I think that like the chance that there's no like just no Nintendo games the rest of the year. And then there's the other thing of just like there's nothing that is of that upper echelon of like 15 million plus sellers, which like, yeah, of course, even if there was a new Donkey Kong game and it was 3D and it was like the next big thing and it looked like it was going to be like, you know, a better cinematography than God of War, and it was a story about, you know, a retired Kong and his new child, and he's got to learn how to be a dad and deal with his loss. Like it could be the best thing in the world. And I couldn't tell you if that was going to sell 15 million copies. All those games are out. You know, like the only game that I think is on the horizon that has that sort of potential is Nintendo. I think I heard that a rumor that they're talking about doing an iPhone version of Nintendogs. And it's like, now that would rake in some money. But as far as like anything else going on this year, Advance Wars is probably coming out this year. There's been store listings and such to suggest that. But like, yeah, I mean, it may be a Mario sports game. Has it been? It's been, you know, they're popping out one of those every year or so, and so like, yeah, I think outside of that, I don't know that we are getting anything like huge this year. But there is, you know, there is a spot open for November, and Pokemon's not going to do something incredible. You know, they still haven't even finished the game they released last year.
Yeah. The thing is that I was reading more about this, and I didn't read the exact article that IGN, spoke about corroborating this information. But the one thing I'll say is that there was some quote that I read that said, keep in mind that they don't consider Pikmin 4 and Metroid Prime 4 to be major system selling titles. And I think this is where like this information, I think, is creating a little bit of discontent or I should say like people just panicking that, oh my gosh, we might not be getting any more big games for the rest of the year. But again, I think you and I are on the same page where I think where a lot of these people are talking about major Switch titles, they're talking about these games that are guaranteed to sell 15 million plus. And there's not many games. That's kind of the thing that's odd to me is I can't think of many Nintendo franchises that at this point are guaranteed to sell that many copies. I think if they were making a 3D Donkey Kong game, like there's a good chance something like that could happen. I have that much faith in just seeing how well Donkey Kong 64 performed. And, if they did something to the effect of that, I think it would be really big. But I just think people are looking at this and saying there's no huge games like Zelda coming out anytime soon. Now, the only part that has me a little concerned is that, they're saying for the rest of this year. And my whole thing is that, well, does any source really believe that it's smart for Nintendo to release 2 games of that caliber in the same year? Because, Zelda's not coming out until almost June. And so that leaves 6 months. I just feel like that's the type of game that you don't want to release too many other gigantic titles next to it. Because, like, imagine if Mario Kart 9 came out 3 months after that or something. I don't think they want that. Like, I don't know. That's just me. It feels a little odd. I mean, but I say that in Breath of the Wild, Splatoon 2, and Odyssey all came out in the same year. Now, granted, they had no idea that the Switch was going to take off the way it did, but I just don't know if they really want all these massive titles in the same timeline. And so, I don't know. I go a little back and forth on this. I could see it being true because I feel like whenever it's Nintendo-related news, usually the most disappointing scenario is the one that comes true. But I don't know, man. I just feel like, especially with Donkey Kong, we've been hearing way too much about this game. I really believe the people that have been talking about this information for so long. And I just think if not now, when? I mean, we've been hearing about this game since 2019. DK Vines heard about it since 2017. So I just can't imagine that. And all the rumors suggested that in 2020 it was entering its gold phase. And so I don't know. It just feels like this game has to come out at some point, and what better time to do it in conjunction with the Super Mario movie. So I know I'm a little all over the place with this one, but it's kind of indicative of how I feel about this. I just don't know where I stand on it.
Yeah. The one thing that I can't, like, I could see the math kind of adds up. Like there is a world where Nintendo Switch 2 or whatever the successor is comes out early next year and they want to like pivot to that. I could believe that. The part that is strange is that they would put out this Mario movie and then not have like something to kind of carry the momentum with it, which I don't know, like maybe they don't need it. This Last of Us TV show is making the rounds. It's entering the pop culture, and go buy the one that's already on PlayStation 5. It's already there. And I imagine we'll see big pickups for Super Mario Odyssey, Mario Maker. There's plenty of Mario on the Switch. And then it's like, if I were Nintendo, yeah, I mean, I maybe I'm just polishing and holding on to Donkey Kong because whenever my new system comes out, Tears of the Kingdom will have some sort of like little upgrade that will convince some people to jump ship. But besides that, we're not going to have a Splatoon for a while. Animal Crossing is probably going to be a while as well. It's about time for a new 3D Mario, but like, yeah, I mean, maybe you just kind of save your cards for the next system, because what we discussed in some of our earlier episodes is that Nintendo has a very, very difficult time following up a popular system. I think they've failed more than they've succeeded in this. It's tough for them. And so maybe they do hold on. But yeah, I gotta say, I'm a little puzzled on this. I don't have like a knee-jerk reaction, because there is enough that's sort of filling the year between Zelda, Pikmin, Pokemon DLC, and Advance Wars. Like, I mean, that's pretty good. And Fire Emblem already came out. Like we've got a new first-party Nintendo game every few months. And so
Possibly Metroid Prime 4.
Yeah, probably not that.
I mean, it's been 4 years, so I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's the funny thing too. Is like, I think if IGN heard that like Metroid Prime was going to come out and be the November game, they'd say like another big game was coming, even though like Donkey Kong would easily outsell Metroid Prime. You know, I'd take that bet like 10 out of 10 times.
Here's my thing with Donkey Kong is I feel like a lot of the rumors have suggested that it's going to be a 2D game. And I feel like that's where if Donkey Kong was coming out this year, I could see them not considering that a major title because, you know, let's be honest, people have this weird opinion about 2D games that they don't look at them as big. You know, like if you took a 2D Mario game and a 3D Mario game, 10 out of 10 times somebody's going to think that the 3D Mario game is the bigger title there. You know, 2D is just kind of looked at as like not really a big deal anymore. And so I feel like that could be the reason why if DK was coming out that, you know, they're like, yeah, you know, that'll be a game. It'll be a Nintendo game, you know, but it's not going to be enormous.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, there it is like, their definition. I mean, they could easily have like a billion other games that like wouldn't be classified as big games. Cause yeah, I mean, all that stuff, like, I don't think they're going to put out anything like incredibly casual this year. I think that market that's making, you know, your Switch Sports, your Ring Fit, your Labo, like, I think they're probably tapped out until next system. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's, you know, and this is where like, it feels like we're missing like an Alpha Dream game in here. You know, Mario and Luigi would hit right now. Or if they, you know, let them do anything else but Mario. Yeah, it's, yeah, but we'll just have to see, I suppose. We might get some more clues with the Nintendo Direct, which I'm seeing on Twitter now. Someone's leaked the entire time codes of it. Wow. We've got Tears of the Kingdom as the opening, Trails in the Sky HD, Batman Arkham Collection for Switch, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 Cloud, Xenoblade DLC, Kid Icarus, Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 Ultimate, okay, Dark Souls, Nier Replicant, Shin Megami Tensei 4, Donkey Kong Country Kremlin Chaos with a K, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, Mario Kart 8, Guilty Gear Strive, another themed OLED, Metroid Prime 4, and Project SNS.
This is all for the next Direct.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah, someone's leaked it all. There it is, folks. There it is.
Man, Kremlin Chaos, I'd be all for it, man. Unfortunately, that's probably not the case.
And then Chaos is like spelled Khaos.
Yeah.
Would that be how you would do it with a K?
Yeah, I don't know if you would just be Kaos. Because there's actually a character, didn't in the Game Boy Advance remake of Donkey Kong Country 2, I'm pretty sure there's a boss named Chaos that's not in the original Donkey Kong Country 2. It's that giant boss that you have near the end of the game.
Yeah,
you probably don't remember that.
It's a Greek primordial goddess. That's how you would spell it that way. But yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Well, so what's this Papa Gino's you were talking about fresh off the press before?
So Papa, my father and yours, made a video about this, you know, all this, like, you know, he's looking at patterns of all the like leaker dudes. He's my favorite because he doesn't leak things himself. He probably hears a few things, but like he'll source them and he'll always advertise them as like just stuff he's hearing, rumors. Like he never like puts his foot down and like says like, no, man, I know what's up. Or like if he's talking about someone like Zippo, he's like, hey man, look, Zippo's been right about a few things. Zippo's been wrong about a lot of things, but here's what he's saying. And it's like, you know, it's like this show where it's like, it's just kind of fun to think about what might happen. For his last video, he talked about that, you know, there's been a large pattern of Nintendo Directs that happen in February, typically the first Wednesday of February. That has already passed. The next Wednesday would be the day after Nintendo's next investor meeting. And traditionally, they've done these Directs before the investor relations meeting. And, you know, like you would imagine that would give them more to talk about with them. And they have to publish a lot of that stuff to the public because they're a publicly traded company. And so, you know, that's probably going to be like, you know, if they're going to have a Direct anytime soon. It's probably going to be before or very near that, so that they can also talk up like all the exciting stuff that they have for the investors. Because they did have to claw back their thoughts on, you know, how many units they were going to sell of Nintendo Switch. They kind of peel that back due to supply chain issues and probably, you know, waning and sort of plateauing demand as well. And so they've had to, they're going to have to address that. So they probably want some exciting news for their investors as well. So I could definitely see it. You know, we could be looking at a direct just randomly dropping any day now, if Nintendo should so choose, but they've been breaking all of their patterns lately. So, you know, we can't know for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like that whole time code thing you were talking about, from what I can tell, it sounds like it's just a joke, but I don't know if that's claiming to be real or not. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I never really get into Nintendo Direct leak season because it just feels like, I don't know, man. Everybody always has these wild ideas. And like I said, typical with Nintendo, usually the most underwhelming or disappointing scenario is the one that comes true. And I don't know. I just don't like reading a lot of things because usually I feel like Nintendo Directs these days, we haven't had one in a while, but I feel like there's always just going to be one or two things that people are really talking about. But rarely do you ever have so many big titles in the same Direct. You know, I can't remember the last time I left a Nintendo Direct being extremely impressed with everything that was coming out, where me personally, I'm not saying that other people weren't impressed, but just coming out of a Direct where I just felt like, wow, there is so many games coming out that I don't know what to do with myself. Probably the one we got in the summer of 2013, when we got the announcement of Super Mario 3D World, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS. I think that might have been the last time where I was like, wow, like Nintendo is really bringing it right now. But I don't think it's very typical. And so I don't know. I don't know what to make of any leaks. Like I said, I respect Papagenos too, like you do, because he just simply reports the news. He doesn't, have a stake in anything. He's just kind of like, hey, here's what people on the internet are saying. And, let me know what you think.
Yeah, but I'll add on there that 2013 was also Pokemon X and Y coming out.
Right, yeah. There was huge. I think there might have been even something else beyond that seemed really cool. But yeah, that Direct was, for us personally, I was like, wow, like this is just back to back to back games. Like, I mean, anytime you announce a new Smash, like that already is going to be such a big deal. But for us, Tropical Freeze, like I remember when Tropical Freeze was announced, you and I just looked at each other, because we're huge Donkey Kong Country fans, but we were like I did not expect that. When I saw Donkey Kong bust out of the plane, that was literally, I'm like, wait, what? Like, I don't know why I didn't expect it, but it just was a really big deal for me. And then 3D World was just, a 4-player 3D co-op Mario game. I mean, that game just looked incredible. So yeah, that was... They did that tour where you could, and this is like, again, kind of the writings on the wall for E3. They did a Direct, and then, rather than put all their eggs in the basket of doing that, they let people show up to select Best Buys to go and try out whatever game of your choice. And like, that was kind of awesome. They had Donkey Kong and Mario 3D World, Smash. I don't think Pokemon was part of that, but wasn't
it was
Mario Kart? Wasn't Mario Kart 8 at that one too?
I don't know.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Mario Kart 8 was also part of that. That Direct was crazy, dude.
Yeah, it'd be fun to like rank the top ones. Like I remember, it's funny too, because like I didn't love the Metroid game that came from it, but like the fact that Nintendo had Country Returns and a new Metroid game coming out in the same like time span that they released in the same or that they revealed in the same presentation, that was huge for me. One of the biggest ones.
Yeah, so it's just, I don't know what to think of all this, but, kind of on the subject of what this show was originally about, with these IGN rumors, all I have to say is I really hope what IGN is saying is not true, because it's honestly, it's incredibly disheartening. I mean, even for me, I know you don't care about E3 anymore. Trevor and I always talk to you about this, and, you've been talking about how they could have done away with this a long time ago. I think for Trevor and I and a lot of other people, it's just one of those things that it's just, I don't know. It just feels like Christmas. It just has that feeling where it's like, man, I can't wait for E3 week to show up. We find out about all the new games that are coming out, and we just share that moment as friends, family, whatever. It's just a really cool time of year. But I just think to know that none of the three major publishers would have a presence at E3 this year, but then also that Nintendo might not have any notable games coming after The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I don't know, man. I just be mad at IGM for reporting this, man. It's like, why are you guys the pair of so much bad news?
Yeah. Yeah, nah, but at the same time, I just cannot for the life of me, like, take a good guess at, we're just in very uncharted territory, but, there is this part of me that's saying that, like, yeah, I mean, I could totally see this whole Lightyear claim, and, that's not to say that, like, something isn't, like, coming ready to be dropped in November. But yeah, just see, again, we just, like, where's the new Donkey Kong game? Where's the new Donkey Kong game? That's all I'm asking. That's the entire purpose of this podcast. We'll probably shut it down when it comes out.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, I know it sounds really silly, but that's all I really care about at this point. I mean, as a Nintendo fan, there's other things I want. Like, I do want to see a new Star Fox, a new F-Zero, which the only reason why I don't care so much about those is because those really are fever dreams. Like, I just don't really see those things being likely to happen. Although, again, I mentioned on our last show that there is a leaker who doesn't claim to know hardly anything except the fact that something's being done with F-Zero. So, take that as you will. But he seems like his only purpose as a leaker is to try and tell you how full of it all the other quote unquote insiders are. But that's the one thing he claims to know about. Everything else, he's like, I have no idea. But I think that's why with Donkey Kong, though, out of all those, it just seems like the only one that seems super realistic. It's just, again, a third of Universal Studios is being dedicated to the Donkey Kong franchise. Donkey Kong has a huge presence in the Super Mario movie, having his own world, having Cranky Kong. We see in the poster that Diddy Kong, Dixie Kong are there. It looks like even Funky Kong's there. Kiddy Kong, Chunky Kong might be even in the movie. I don't know if you saw on YouTube, Nintendo took down a video about Chunky Kong rumors in the Nintendo or in the Super Mario movie. That was really curious. Like, I don't know. I know, again, it just sounds selfish of me, but I'm just waiting for that DK game. If you give me DK this year, I don't care. I really don't care about what else comes out. We got Zelda. I'm super excited for Metroid Prime 4 whenever that does get shown, which I feel like that has to get shown this year at some point. It's been over 4 years. Like, you have to show us something. Unless that game's just not being made anymore, like, there's no way they just can go 5 years without showing a single detail of that game. But, my priority is just give me DK back. Once DK's back, we can start looking at everything else.
Yeah. It would be very nice to do that. Get another Donkey Kong game, but only time will tell. We'll see if there's a direct. If there is a direct, regardless of whether there's a direct or if it's just the investor meeting. Honestly, I find a lot more value in the investor meeting. I find the inside scoop, how the sauce is made, to be so interesting, as well as the performance and expectations for all the different franchises going on. Can't wait to see that. I think they're going to have a lot to say about how great Kirby did, and how much money Fire Emblem's still making on the iPhone, and like, why do we even make games for that anymore? It's just making an iPhone franchise. So we'll be covering that or the direct sometime soon. So hope you'll join us then.